Hello everybody and welcome on today's video. Today I need to do some work on this beech tree. There's a series of it, and well, as you see, the weeds have grown quite vigorously in this pot, but yeah, well, so I will have to get rid of that, so it's going to be some cleaning up that I have to do. But I have a little problem with the name weeds. It is very negative, and I'd like to share with you the magnificent little flowers that are growing here, which are a little bit too high, of course, and doesn't make this tree look like a tree because the proportions aren't right. But let's have a look, and then I'll clean the surface of this pot. Yeah, as you see, these flowers are absolutely magnificent. They're so small and fragile, and well, okay, they'll have to go anyway. So see you when this is done. The surface is now well, almost clean, but it does not really matter. There's still some weeds and grass and things, but it does not really matter because to conclude this video, I will lift the tree out of the pot. I'm not going to repot it, but I'm going to lift it, add a layer of soil, and just put it back. So in the coming months I can, with a brush, gently get the roots a little more visible, because one of the main features on beech trees, real beech trees in nature, I mean, is that they have this wide root base that sticks out of the ground, and that gives a lot of maturity. So now this is the back of the tree, this is the front. As you see, it's rather well, there's nothing growing here, and I grafted this branch a few years ago. I started it. I think it's doing okay now, but while I was doing it, another part of the tree died off, and well, that was of course a problem. So this is rather ugly now. I'll give you a detail, and what I intend to do is try to eliminate a part of this a piece of the trunk here, so that it's a little more smooth. So yeah, I'll mark this. I'll show you first the problem zone here. This is the back of the tree, and here the graft has taken. You see, it started here, and well, the fusion is quite okay, I think. But okay, the disaster is when you look at it from the front. Yeah, I had to remove this part, and I was quite well. I did it with a whole lot of care, but you see, this branch is now growing well. But yeah, this is absolutely not natural. It's ridiculous. So I will have to do something to get rid of this portion. So let's do that. So for starters, I'll remove these plastic rings here that kept the grafts in position for another year. And I have this yeah, branch that I removed here, so I think that maybe I can give it a little more shape by just putting this line in consideration. And this is quite a straight portion, so by making this a little curved, it might become a little more interesting. So I will have to include this in the deadwood. Yeah, well, I'm going to put on my things to protect my ears, ear protection, and I'm going to use the Dremel tool. So I'll speed it up so the noise disappears, and yeah, we'll see what will happen. So as you probably might see, I'm already reaching living tissue. so I have to be extremely careful because it might die back as well. And okay, so I'll have definitely I have to remove this portion and try to get here. And yeah, well, I'll show you the result because it's getting ridiculous to film this. You'll see, so you'll have a good look at the start. Okay, like so. So I've been carving and doing all kinds of terrible things the last 20 minutes, and you see, you can also do some carving with just scissors and little snips, you know, but these are very, very small pieces of tissue you remove, but at least you will not slip and damage your work. So I think this looks a whole lot better. It's much more natural. I reached the point here where the graft enters the trunk here. So of course this branch is going to grow and it will slowly cover up and then create this nice transition. Well, that's the plan. You see, of course, that here we have a brown spot, and this brown spot is where the hollow was first, and this new shari, we shall call it, is still white because, well, it's fresh. But in the coming months and years, this will become brown also. So that's why you should not treat this. By the way, when deciduous trees have dead parts and rotting parts in nature, it's always looking dark brown, sometimes really almost black, and you don't want to paint that. Or another thing, if you apply lime sulfur, it's not going to look natural. It's best to let it rot and then clean it with a brush so that the structure of the rotting is still visible. Then you can use some kind of wood hardener and to prevent the rest from the tree from rotting if you want, and you obtain a natural view. The next thing I would like to do is have a look at the surface roots of what should become the surface roots. And then, of course, most of the people would take the tree out and do a repot. But I feel that this tree, when I wiggle it, is not all the soil is moving. So this tree is definitely not pot bound. So there's no need to do that. Can we work on the surface roots? Yes, we can do that, because we just have to lift the tree a little out of the pot. You can add a layer of soil so that the tree has new soil, and then in the coming weeks, months or year, just brush the soil at the top away, which you can do, of course, now if you want to have a look at the roots. So that's what I'm gonna do. So for starters, I'm going to grab the tree firmly, and you see it grew quite well, but all these thin little roots, well, they are roots of the weeds. So it's not a good thing, because I killed the weeds, I hope. Well, these might as well become compost. I'm trying not to touch the root ball too much here. Now I'm adding a layer of thick lava. Really not a lot, just 1 centimeter tops. And then I'll add some smaller lava with a whole lot of compost. I know it's not really something a lot of people do these days, adding organic material, but I think it's really good. Trees need that. Of course, you have to be sure that your mixture is well draining, but it has to contain some slow nutrition. And then we'll just put the tree back in its pot. like so. Because the tree, the pot has a movement that is slightly this direction, I have of course gaps everywhere. That's mathematic. So I'm going to take care of it by doing two things. First of all, I'm going to push the tree and the roots and the whole root ball stuff in one corner, and I will have to choose one. And of course I want the negative space to be here, so this should have some more room, some more space, and I'd like to have the tree in the back, so I'm going to push it as much as I can over here. Now I have 1 centimeter of space here, which I'm simply going to fill up with some soil and then press it gently inside, and this might take a few minutes, so I'll be back when this is done, because it's really not spectacular and there's nothing to it, but it has to be done, of course. Well, it's kind of obvious there's too much soil here now, and that's why I did it, because I want to be able to remove a part of this soil. So I'm going to do that with a little root rake. You can of course always do that with a fork. You don't need all this fancy bonsai material, but it's fun to have it, but it's not necessary. So you see, you can also remove a whole lot of these weeds that are remaining, the roots, by hand then, and that's exactly what you want to do, because it's good to have your surface cleaned. So this is already a root that I didn't know I had. So by exposing it a little more to the light and the heat, it will get another texture. Another thing you're doing now is exposing the very weak roots. Some will not stay in the ground and will probably die back, which is okay, because there's plenty of roots in the pot to make the tree grow healthy, and all these little things you'd cut probably anyway. So just cleaning this up roughly. This is a root, it's a nice root, yeah. So I wonder what's going to be here, because this is a thick root, and maybe it has some side roots now, which would be very pleasing. And this was always a problem zone. That's also a reason why I choose this as a back. I have a root going up here, which is not really good, so I'll probably have to try to push it a little more into the soil, which I might be able to do by removing some soil under it. And then with a piece of wire try to anchor it. And this way it could be a very interesting route. If I don't manage to put it in the ground with a piece of wire, I also might put a thick stone on it. Maybe that does the trick. I think my wire might be a little long, I don't know. If I can keep it long, it's of course better, because it's gonna do more. Yeah, this is okay. If I can keep it that way, it's gonna be very nice. So you see, this is another way. If a root is sticking too high, don't just cut it off. Try to work with it. If it's not possible, you can always cut it off later, but A root like this takes 2 or 3 years to grow it. And the way it is now, it adds a lot of character. So I'm going to press the soil around it so that it keeps well in position. Okay, this looks very dark. It might be a dead root, I don't know. Okay, so that's time for some extra smooth cleaning up. Oh, another root here, which is very nice. This is not a very good root. It's on top of the other, so this I will remove. And the rest of the root can stay in the ground, it will rot. So this is what I was talking about. This little root is now exposed. It will probably die. If you really want to keep this root, well, you have to make a little hole here, like so. Put it back in the ground, cover it up with some soil. There's plenty on the table. And so you save a root, put it where you want it, and it will add to the character of the tree. Also, by working this way, you're combing out the roots and making them radial. Here I have again a whole lot of roots that I never saw before. Here I have a root that is not radial, so I'm just pulling it, and if I want to keep it, I'll have to put it in the soil, and if I don't want to keep it, I'll get it out. Here is something very entangled. It's a quite thick root, but it's a root that No, I see. It's a coming back root. We don't want any coming back roots, so okay. So it is quite surprising how much you can do for the root base by not getting the tree completely out of his pot and bare root is because you are doing a real heavy work there for the tree. Bare rooting it, it's a major setback, and sometimes you have to do it, but it is really not necessary to do that every year. Okay. I think I'm almost done here. I'm going to clean up the mess a little more and I'll be back in a second. I was still removing some weeds here between the roots, and I noticed that I have two thin roots, here one and here one, that are in a much better position than this thick one. So I'm going to remove this one, like so. Cleaning up this portion so that it might heal a little better if you make a a hollow, it's going to heal a whole lot cleaner. Now I must take care not to damage the little roots. So now instead of having one ugly root, I have 1, 2 and 3 even. 3 nice smaller roots, and I'll try to bury this one to give it a good chance of survival. Okay, so I wasn't finished here. Now you see, because I removed a whole lot of the weeds, I have hollows here, and that's of course not desirable, so I will have to fill this up with soil. So this is as clean as I can get the surface, and of course some roots are sticking out now, and well, you'll remove them anyway in the next tree pot, so why just don't do it now? Watch out, because with all these stones and lava you can easily damage your scissors, so be careful. Don't use your best scissors for this. This is also a good moment to remove the little roots that are sticking out. They'll just die anyway. But it will clean up the whole thing. This root is I don't know where it's coming from. Well, from here, and it's already turning in the pot, so this will not be a root that I can keep in the future. So now that the lip of the pot is clean, I can see where I have big gaps under the roots, and gently fill these gaps with some fresh soil, because the maturity is to show the roots over the soil, over the surface, but not to create big gaps. That's the difference between burying your roots and exposing them just the way they give this extra dimension. So here I have a big hole, so I'm gonna need a little more soil than that. Of course, when you do that, it is not done in one day, because I'm going to water this tree. This is a little problematic. I think this root is dead, so I'm going to cut it off. Up to here it's dead, it's still dead, and so I mean it's completely dead. So if you water this tree a few times, well, probably the soil will get a little deeper, or you wash away a part of it, so you'll have to redo this a couple of times this year. But these are just the minor little duties we have, and which makes this hobby so always interesting and fun. There's always little things to do. So I think I'll stop now. Okay, I'm going to clean up my table and I'll be back. So here we are now, and I am quite happy about the work that I did. I think the transition is way better now. I also think that the root base is nice and wide, and that it gives a whole lot more maturity than it did in the beginning. One thing that I don't think is okay is if you look at the tree, it is still a little too much straight, and it should come a little more forward. So maybe I just lift it out of the ground and put it a little more like this, which might be a little more interesting. But I can also wait and live with it for another year and do that when I give the tree a full repot. It does not really matter, because the tree is, well, it needs a whole lot of growing. I still don't have foliage here. I don't think I will ever have, because there's not really a bud here. But I can always do something to the side here with this back branch. But of course it will have to grow a whole lot, and beeches are slow growers. There are some dead parts here that I should remove, but I'm going to wait to see what's going on, because it's just starting to leaf out. So a lot of questions and a lot of patience is needed here, but that's what we have to have when we're doing bonsai. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.